If I were to ask you, which teams are college football's most dangerous teams this year? Which ones would you circle? Here are the caveats. We're not looking for teams ranked in the top 6 or 7. We're looking for teams that may be slightly off the playoff radar, but you feel either could make the playoff or at the very least they could wreck multiple playoff dreams. And I got 1, 2, 3. I got 4 of them here, but I put this out on Twitter earlier today. Got great response. There was a ton of Ole Miss, a ton of Iowa State. I'm not talking about Iowa State because they're going to be ranked well inside the top 10. Arkansas was a strong mention. Texas, Miami, these are all good. LSU was mentioned. I'm about to lead off with them. So there was a lot of good submission that I cannot get to. And this is not in any order except for the first one. But let's roll with this. LSU, to me, is the most dangerous team in college football this year, fitting these parameters, because there's no ceiling. This is the only program in America, if you really stop to think about it, the LSU Tigers, 2021, there's no ceiling because the roster's so good, they're literally capable of winning a national championship if everything were to go right. There's also a downside to that we'll circle back to. But think about the quarterback situation. You've got 2 viable candidates there. This is a top 5 roster. You don't need to worry a second about whether that organization is hungry. There is an entire organization that is less than 2 years removed from winning a title that has their backs against the wall, feeling the need to reprove themselves to the world. That's a really good formula. You're looking at the schedule if you're watching on YouTube. It's a very winnable early portion of the schedule. So if you've got things to figure out, you got a couple of new coordinators, UCLA, McNeese, Central Michigan, at Mississippi State, Auburn, at Kentucky, those are as close to tune-ups that you would line up if you reside in the SEC as you can get. I'm not disrespecting those programs. I'm saying you're going to have to play someone. Those are the someones you want to play. You don't want Bama in week 2. You don't want Florida in week 3. You don't want to go to Ole Miss in week 4 or A&M in week 5. You want those teams on the back half. There is no ceiling. If all things fall the way LSU wants them to, they can literally win a title. That's how good the roster is. But there's also no floor here. Because if they've got the same internal locker room rot that they had last year, if culturally things still suck down there, there's no floor. No amount of talent can save you. They could fall off the cliff, and you could just hear one collective all year. And then you know what comes at the end, the great big splat. This is the most dangerous team in America this year. Now we move on. I wanted to clearly state that LSU was my top choice there. There's one more SEC team we're going to circle back to. So the rest of these are not in any order. I want to go about as far away from Baton Rouge as we can and still reside in college football. Washington is a very dangerous team this year. Let me just get you 2 simple questions. You may not think they're capable of winning a title. I don't think they're capable of winning a national title. But remember, we're talking about teams that could make the playoff or wreck other teams' playoff dreams here. I'm going to ask you 2 questions, very generic. What if I told you that there is a Power 5 team that could be favored in every one of their games? And then second part of that is absolutely no one's talking about them on the playoff radar, as far as I can tell. Would you be interested in that? Because my answer to both would be yes, and it's Washington. You're looking at the schedule right now on screen if you're watching visually. That game, November 6th, week whatever it is, against Oregon. That's the only game right now as it stands that I would make them an underdog in. And it would be short. It would be about a field goal or less. And so who knows, by the time that gets here, that's several months away and several games away. Washington could be favored in that one. They're favored as it stands right now at Michigan in week 2. We're going to talk more about that game later. Look at this. They don't play USC from the South. They don't play Utah from the South. Their other toughest games, Oregon, got them at home. Washington State, got them at home. Arizona State, got them at home. And so this is a dangerous team without the possibility of the offense making a pretty sizable leap forward. Because I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm going to go as far as to suspect that they're going to make some quantum leap offensively. But it's not out of the realm of possibility totally that they could make a sizable jump in production offensively. If that were to happen, then they become an even more dangerous team. I think schedule dynamics alone and quality of roster and returning starter quality and experience returning quality makes them a dangerous team. Probably the most dangerous in the Pac-12, again, not counting Oregon, because Oregon is already going to be respected, at least in the preseason, I think more than Washington will be. I think a lot more people, even if they're ranked similarly, and I haven't seen a lot of preseason ratings, and we haven't done ours yet. JP poll, not released yet. But even if you do try and window dress and say, oh, Washington and Oregon rank similarly, there's only one of those that you're taking serious as an actual playoff threat, and it's probably not Washington. So I'm going to label Washington as my most dangerous Pac-12 team, fitting those criteria. Then we got to go to the Big 12. I deliberated about whether I should include Texas here, but I think there's a more dangerous team than Texas. However, we don't have to leave the Lone Star State to find them. TCU, another one of the most dangerous teams in college football. TCU is my most dangerous Big 12 team. Very sneaky here. I've got very little doubt that TCU is going to wreck at least one team's season. I do not think that this is going to be a team that makes the playoff. It would very much surprise me. It wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world. I don't think they're going to make the playoff, but I do think when you look at how their schedule sets up, this is schedule dynamic city. So think about what we have here. You got all the veteran elements you would need. It's a veteran roster. They're not alone because of the super senior rule. There are a lot of veteran rosters out there. Well, this is one of them, but they have a veteran presence at quarterback, hopefully healthy this year, and equally as important, behind a veteran offensive line finally. Of course, a veteran head coach. I think Patterson's in his 21st year, which I think gets kind of overlooked. You don't have many coaches 2 decades in anywhere. They are underrated at wide receiver this year, and they have Zach Evans at running back. The only questions surrounding Zachary Evans coming out of high school were off field, and from this point on his body, the neck up. No one questioned his wheels. No one questioned his burst or his cutting ability. Well, he came on kind of strong at the end of last year. All those pieces are back, is what I'm telling you. Now, I want you to listen to this. Close your eyes and just picture TCU. You know how pesky they've been in the past under normal circumstances. Now imagine you're Texas. You got Oklahoma 2 weeks from now. What has the Big 12 schedule maker decided to deal you the week before the Red River rivalry? Shootout, excuse me. A trip to TCU. So TCU gets Texas the week before Red River. It gets better. Then if you're the Oklahoma Sooners and you come out of Red River, who does the Big 12 schedule dealer have you facing the next week? TCU gets Oklahoma the week after Red River. And I'm still not done. They also play at Iowa State to end the year. It is a Thursday or Friday game. Guess who Iowa State plays the week before that? OU. Yeah. So in summary, TCU plays Texas right before they play OU. TCU plays OU right after they play Texas. And TCU plays Iowa State right after Iowa State's played Oklahoma. And by the way, probably one of the more underrated offensive rosters in America this year as it relates to expectation. So that's all we have going for us for TCU right now. Parker, you're welcome, buddy. And last but not least, in fact, I gave strong consideration to making this team the most dangerous. So it was actually a tie. It was almost a tie between a couple of SEC West teams. Ole Miss. Oh, boy. So let me say this, and let me let it simmer for just a second, because I had some pushback on this the other day. I'll address that in a second. Ole Miss, one of the most dangerous teams in college football. Let me give you one question that could just totally turn the playoff picture on its ear this year. And it's the answer to this question. What if Ole Miss is average defensively this year? They don't have to be great. They don't have to be good. They were abysmal last year. They gave up a little over 38 points per game defensively. They were ranked 118 or 119. If they were to give me production defensively in the 50 to 60 range nationally, this is a playoff contender, not a fringe top 20. You didn't misunderstand me. If Ole Miss gets average comparative defensive production this year, that's a playoff contender. The difference is Lane Kiffin showing up with his offense knowing, man, we got to score 40 to have a shot today, versus him showing up saying, 4 touchdowns, 30 points, that could get it done today. That makes the difference in multiple wins for them this year. I said something the other week. A lot of you laughed at it. I'm dead serious about it. I know coaches didn't laugh at it. I told you teams in the SEC get very uncomfortable when they see Ole Miss on the schedule. They get a lot more uncomfortable when they see Ole Miss than when they see some other teams that you may have higher expectations for any given year. Because with Lane Kiffin parked there, and arguably, I don't even argue this, going into the season, the top quarterback in the conference, easily the most proven quarterback, I would say, in the conference, all the other offensive weaponry, and very much a retooled and, they hope, an overhauled defense. This is a team you're going to see in a lot of preseason rankings in like the 15 to 25 range that has a legitimate shot, if they have average defensive play, to be a playoff contender. Because they have all the other parts you want. The explosiveness offensively, they have it. The cat at quarterback you need, the skill, the play calling and everything, they have all that. It's just that no one thinks they can stop Molasses in December defensively, and that's what keeps them on the periphery, and that's what just makes them a threat to knock someone else off as opposed to an actual contender themselves. There's going to be a lot of focus on Bama, as they should be. There's going to be a lot of focus on A&M, as there should be. If you came to me and you said, Josh, I think I'm going to make Ole Miss my number 2 team in the West, I would say, I'm interested, I'm intrigued, I could easily see the argument, go on and lay it out for me. And at that point, we would have a strong conversation. If you think that would be shocking, let me put it this way. If you think Ole Miss beating Alabama this year would be shocking, I don't know what sport you've been watching. I don't even with Alabama, as great as Alabama is, if you think that team with Lane Kiffin and an average defense would be shocking if they started beating folks, I don't know what you're watching. It wouldn't shock me at all, I'll tell you that. So what did we go? We went LSU, Washington, TCU, Ole Miss. Look, if you want to throw Arkansas in there, have at it. Miami, absolutely. Texas gave strong consideration there. Oklahoma State, I started to roll with them. So, yes, there are many more ways we could go. I just didn't want it to be a 25-minute segment.